We're back of the official Catchup podcast. It's me, Ben, here as always. I was joined by Mr. Chris Powell. Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Just been busy lately. We didn't have a catch-up episode last week. That was my fault, by the way. I was sleeping, had a wee siesta or a nap on a Sunday. For whatever reason, I just felt tired. I slept. So sorry about that, guys. But as you say, we're back. Always love talking with yourself, Ben, about non-league football and the goings-on and whatnot.
Plenty to talk about, of course. We'll start with the Lowland League, as we always do. There were full card of fixtures on Saturday, and we'll start with Berwick Rangers 2, Bo'ness United 2. I guess a point for Berwick. It's still kind of up and down, Berwick, I would say. At the moment, Bo'ness probably similar kind of team. But a draw, goals, but probably was expected that. Probably Berwick to edge that myself, personally.
It was a bit of a mad game. Bo'ness were leading at a point, and then it was a bit of a mad ending to the game. I heard penalty to Berwick, and Lewis Baker puts it away. But Bo'ness 4 down to 9 men, so they kind of held on because Berwick also did get a disallowed goal towards the death as well. So Berwick will be gutted not to beat a 9-men Bo'ness side, but. Look, Bo'ness are a good team. We've talked about how they started well. 2 sort of decent sides. And I think they're both trying to get to that sort of level that I talked about, that first to 9, the sort of top half of the league. Berwick, I think, are just outside now. So, tough game. There was a few mental sort of games recently in the Lowland League. I think the big talking point for Berwick is obviously Michael Travis got his Scottish Cup red card appealed successfully, so he would have been a massive loss for them had he'd been missing for 3 matches. So he was a big game there, obviously. But yeah, Berwick, Bo'ness, there's not really much to talk about in terms of anything that's going on with them at the moment, but we'll keep an eye on it, Ben.
No, absolutely. It's obviously teams both kind of in the middle of the table. They're not going to win the league. They're not going to get relegated. They're kind of in the middle there, toiling. And I think we've talked about it a couple of times now about the whole thing about the Berwick and the cup runs and the fact they've kind of lost cup games and been knocked out and kind of made comments about their focus on the league. I don't really know what they've got left to do this season, Berwick. I feel like they're almost like their season has like run its course because, as I say, you don't see them going down, don't see them going up, winning the league. So strange, must be strange being a Berwick fan just now. Certainly, I would have to feel with that kind of situation. Next one then, probably a surprising result, I would say for me, given how good East Kilbride have been. But Caledonian Braves 2, East Kilbride 2, dropped points for EK, Chris.
Yeah, I would have probably went to that game if there wasn't train strikes. We need to get to Alliance Park at some point, obviously. I think they're keen to have us over, which I appreciate, obviously, Chris Ewan, and to meet the lads, which we've talked up. We've been fairly positive about Caledonian Braves so far this season. It's an excellent result for the Braves, obviously, 2-2. I think it was a last-minute penalty, and obviously Mark Kelly puts it away. We've talked about Mark numerous times. He's such a key player for Braves. Disappointing for EK. Considering they've not been, I wouldn't say they've not been at their best the last few weeks. They've kind of grinded out results, and it's probably when you come up against a Brave side that are showing that they're a fairly decent side this season. It's tough when you're up against the sort of top sides. You have to be at your best. But fair play to the Braves, thoroughly deserved draw from what I've heard. I think EK need to start taking more of their chances. They've got several goal scorers, several good players in that team, but they need to do a wee bit better. And defensively, obviously, we've not really talked to them, a lot about defence because obviously it's usually Cammy Elliott, Neil McLaughlin, these sort of players that we talk about. But I'm really happy for Donald. I put him in the team of the month. He had a fantastic sort of loan spell at East Stirling. He went to EK, wasn't automatically, thinking that he would be sort of straight into the first team at EK, but he's done really well and he's a really good young defender. So obviously, wouldn't I like to concede 2 goals when he's in the team? But EK are a solid outfit and just shows Braves, drawn with them. I'd give them confidence, I think, going forward. And I think they're going to finish much higher than I would have thought at the start of the season for the Braves.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think for me, from what they did last season, you expect them to be the bottom half of the table, not really doing an awful lot. Didn't really think they'd strengthened the squad all that much. Didn't seem much in terms of players coming in for Cali Braves, but they've started obviously quite well. Probably slipped away a little bit in terms of they were obviously kind of further up the table at the first kind of part of the season, but by no means disgracing themselves in the top 10. And the way EK are playing now, we've talked about them every week in this podcast. They're excellent. They've been flying. We've always talked about East Kilbride and how they maybe struggled to start the season sometimes in the past, but they've kind of managed to rectify that. And you obviously tipped them to win the league at the start of the season. They're going to be right up there. So difficult team to play against, no matter whether it's home and away. But yeah, fair play to Cali Braves. It's a good point at home and something they can maybe build on. I know they've got EK in the Scottish Cup in a couple of weeks' time, so we'll give them a bit of confidence they can maybe go to K Park and maybe build on that result and get a result and get into the next round of the Scottish Cup. Another probably surprising result for me certainly is Cowdenbeath 5, East Stirlingshire 0. Again, another team Cowdenbeath have talked about a lot in this podcast and how they are toiling, struggling, whatever proverbial phrase you want to put in there, but didn't expect to go and put 5 past Shire. I know Shire not having the best of seasons, but struggling to win games, but certainly didn't expect 5 from Cowdenbeath.
Yeah, Shire were down to 10 men again. Another sending off. I think that's the last sort of 2 or 3 games they've been playing with 10 men. And you can look at some teams and say that they might get away with it against a sort of similar or weaker opponent. We've talked about Shire. They do not have the depth to be losing anyone for suspension or injury. It's just an uphill struggle. Obviously, you've got guys like Sean Brown, who's a really great young player, but he's playing out of position. He's playing at left back. Heard sort of mixed reviews on him at left back. But obviously, if they need him there, that's where he's playing. He's a good enough player that he could probably does have the adaptability to do that. But I always think he's more effective higher up the field. Shire, they are toiling a wee bit, aren't they? It is really worrying because we talk about them kind of being the draw masters in the league, but the fact that they've not won yet is concerning. And they've got good players. They've got a good team. That the sort of base. You look at that, and they shouldn't be getting beat 5-0 off Cowdenbeath. But we're talking about the negatives of Shire there. That's a fantastic result for Cowdenbeath. I actually had a kind of mini thought that they've kind of pushed on a wee bit, but I think that is still their first win in like 3 or 4 so in the league. So I wouldn't say Cowdenbeath are out of the sort of worrying stage at the moment, but fantastic result, and it's certainly a confidence, one full of confidence basically. Just looking back, actually, they have won 3 of the last 5 in the league, Cowdenbeath, so I did feel like they had sort of improved. So I was trying to figure out where I got that from, but 3 wins in the last 5 for a team like Cowdenbeath is actually pretty decent. So it does seem like Maurice Ross has kind of picked them up a wee bit, and a result like that is fantastic. 10 men or not, 5-0 at home, you can't grumble at that,
Yeah, I think you've got to be a little bit concerned for Shire at this point. As I say, lack of wins is very telling. I think we've always talked about kind of around the relegation about how probably most teams are thankful that the Dalbeattie are there and at the bottom. If you're East Stirlingshire just now, you may be worried slightly because still a long way to go in the season. Dalbeattie obviously sacked or parted ways with Jordan Williamson during the week and brought in a new manager, and you just wonder then if they can pick up some results. The new guy come in, can he get some signings in, for example, and change that team and give a team like Shire or Edinburgh Uni, for example, a run for their money, and it would then put them in a kind of precarious position. I think we talked about Cowdenbeath as that team for a long time. But as you say, picked up results, kind of going in the right direction. One of those teams is probably still not 100% sure about because there's still so much football still to be played within this within the league, and if they can Cowdenbeath can build on that result and go in and get maybe a couple of wins, especially at home as well. I think that'll be important for Cowdenbeath when the type of ground they've got. It's probably a horrible place to go and play at. Teams will hate the whole away trip there. A bit like myself going to Lags and on Saturday. It's not a place you want to be going. But certainly from Cowdenbeath perspective, and fair play them, because we've been very, very critical of them in this podcast all season, and I know that I've been called out for my lack of positivity across the board in recent weeks. So certainly got to give Cowdenbeath a lot of credit there for getting that result. But but back on to Shire, I don't know where they go. I just don't know what they can do. They're going to need to do something to bring some maybe players in and maybe build out that depth, because they can't be affording suspensions. You're going to get into a point where probably injuries and even yellow card suspensions are going to start to creep in as well, and it could be tough for Shire for sure. So
it's well known that they don't have the financial backing that they used to, and they are struggling a wee bit, I think, in terms of someone like Dean Ritchie obviously got released from East Stirlingshire. I don't know if it was to talk to other teams, but he signed for Cowdenbeath. So that's the kind of level that East Stirlingshire are at in terms of financially. They're not competing with the likes of maybe a Spartans or an EK for players now. They're competing at that lower level against likes of maybe Cowdenbeath or possibly even a Dalbeattie as well. So they're at a much lower budget than they have been, and it's hard to get players in it. If a player's offered higher wages, and look at, as I said about Sean Brown, he's playing out of position. Obviously, that's probably agreed on when he signed. So it's very tough for a team that's not got the finances to compete. But again, it's not all about finances. The red cards need to stop. They're not. The discipline's not been great, and you can't win games with 10 men most weeks.
Yeah, I think you're right about Shire and getting the players on, because the other aspect of it, they're probably competing with the likes of a lot of Glasgow-based West teams, maybe even further West teams, some of these Scotland teams we've got, and the East Scotland Premiership teams. So is there a point to going to maybe a team like Shire, because you might get a little bit more money at a top end 6-tier Premiership team who are maybe going for cups and going for leagues and things like that? And I don't know that you would maybe want to go to a team like Shire if you see them at the bottom of the table, especially just now, the way they're playing and the way that they're struggling to get results. You want to go there and go through that kind of whole slog. It might be quite tough, but I guess we'll just have to watch what happens with Dalbeattie, because I think that's going to be the important bit for me. And of course, over the course of the season, talking about Dalbeattie, then we'll just go straight on to their match from the weekend. They were playing Spartans and they lost 6-0 away to Spartans. Chris, Eddie Warwick came in during the week. Seems to have a decent pedigree in coaching. Big fans of Williamson here on the podcast, and got to give him a bit of credit for the fact he did step up and take the job after doing so well at St Cuthbert's, but it's not worked out for him. It's been a tough ask for anyone to go into that Dalbeattie job and try and build a completely new squad. And looking back to Saturday, another thumping off a Spartans.
Yeah, you look at the Dalbeattie team. I mentioned it obviously when I said my piece when Eddie became the manager, but most of the boys were stepping up, to that Dalbeattie. It was the same with Jordan. There was a couple of guys that obviously that have been in the Lowland League before, but it's very, very challenging. Most players now, I feel, especially in the Lowland League, are either coming down or have had that SPFL experience where these boys didn't. And, I think it's shown early doors. Would I have given them more time? Personally, I don't think it was a shock, but I was kind of surprised that, it was this early. I mean, we're only, would have been September, but in fairness, Jordan's still a young coach. He'll go again at some point. Whole career ahead of him. Eddie Warwick, experienced coach, head of youth development at Gretna. He's been all over the world, I think in China, and obviously he's been at like Queen of the South as well. So he'll have connections. Has he had any sort of proper manager experience at a senior team? I don't think so. So that could be a bit of a challenge. But I'm I rate Eddie as a coach from everything I heard. Can he turn it around for Dalbeattie? I'm not sure. I'm not sure at this stage. I hope so. But I mean, you look at the other teams and think it's going to be really difficult. Positive for Spartans, obviously. 6 goals at home, brilliant. Blair Henderson hat-trick as well, so it's good to see him firing. We've not really talked about Spartans. I've got quite a weird relationship with Spartans. Obviously, I've done a bit of media for them. I know the team quite well. My standards, especially if I know the team and have been involved in the team, my standards are probably a wee bit higher for Spartans than where they are at the moment. I think they should be doing a wee bit better, and they know that. I mean, the players will know that. So, yeah, that's probably why I'm less positive about speaking about Spartans, I should say, because I would expect them to be doing better. Hence why I probably don't speak too positively about them recently.
Yeah, it's a great result. Scoring 6 in any game, I mean, you're going to be absolutely delighted about that in terms of, regardless of who it is. But Spartans are doing, again, another team doing, I think there's a lot of teams in the Lowland League that we could probably say are doing fine. I think they're not setting the world alight in terms of going to be going for the title. I think we're probably seeing the teams that are going to challenge. You're probably looking at East Kilbride, Rangers B, Broomhill, Open Goal Broomhill. Sorry, got to get the branding right there. But those 3 teams, I think, will say that they'll be the teams challenging, and the teams we probably expected to challenge, given the, like, for example, Broomhill's investment this season. We thought they were going to be up there. East Kilbride and East Kilbride, and we know they're always going to be challenging. Rangers B, some of us said they were going to be good, and they've got 3 games in hand. So I think they've still got plenty to offer. And it's one of those that the rest of the teams in that, probably from about 5th down to probably about 16, maybe 15th, 16th in the league, are just doing okay and not really going to be doing an awful lot. Like this year, they probably want to be focusing on things like cup competitions. I guess Spartans have done well to get through in the Scottish Cup against Clydebank. We mentioned that the other week, and they'll have that to focus on. Certainly, and if I was them, that's something I'd be looking at in the. I can't remember off the top of my head who they got in the next round, but certainly the cup competitions, the South Challenge Cup, the Scottish Cup for those teams of the competitions you probably want to be really focusing on, because you're not going to do anything miraculous in the league, I don't think, personally, and you're not going to get relegated. So I think the cups are going to be really important for these teams kind of going forward. Next one, the incoming all Colts 1, University of Stirling 3. Another great result for Uni, sitting 4th in the table, 7 wins now, out of 12. Chris Geddes, his hat or no hat, is absolutely flying just now.
Yeah, 4 wins on the bounce in the league. James Stokes, Ben McIver, Redwood, and the team of the month. Well deserved, two Uni boys in the team. Obviously, Colts have been a wee bit unlucky recently. Obviously they've had a few defeats. East Kilbride comes to mind, where East Kilbride's goal from a corner. I've heard mixed things whether it was a corner or not, so they can count themselves unlucky. They had another narrow defeat before Stirling Uni, where it was kind of potentially a wee bit controversial. I thought it would have been a tougher game, but Chris, I listened to Chris's interview this morning when it got uploaded, and apparently he was cursing and effing, and know that type of coach to do that. So just because Stirling Uni, had a lot of chances, and they eventually got over the line, obviously. But Stirling Uni are doing really good at the moment. It doesn't surprise probably me and you, Ben. It probably might surprise other people. Would I have thought they would have been that high in the table at this sort of stage? Probably not, in fairness, but they've got a good team. It's guys that we talk about them losing senior players, like guys like Conor Doan and Robbie McGale, and then previously obviously guys like Blair Lyons, who are like their top players. But every season the other lads step up, and they've already had that maybe a season or two on the 20s, or maybe a wee bit of Lowland League experience from previous seasons. So Stirling Uni are just like a conveyor belt. And they always seem to do well, and it looks like they always seem to do better, probably against expectations sometimes. So I'm delighted for Chris. Obviously, it's a tough one for Colts to lose that, but I think 3 losses in a row is not great for them. But they're good enough to bounce back at Cumbernauld.
Yeah, I think from Cumbernaulds' perspective, the losses, apart from obviously Saturday, have always been close. I think they 1-0 to Dalbeattie and say 1-0 to East Kilbride are both close games. One was the Scottish Cup, one was the league, obviously. But yeah, I think going on a University of Stirling, did we expect them to be a second table? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm not going to we obviously rave about the work that Chris Geddes does in this podcast quite often, and they're probably one of those teams I would put in that bracket of would normally be doing fine, but right up there. They're obviously a little bit behind, not too far behind them. 6 points off top with a game in hand, and with 2 points behind Rangers B and Open Goal Broomhill. So I mean, they're not miles away. Just hopefully that squad they've got, and obviously it depends what happens. I think the thing I always notice with Uni is that when the Bucks season starts, do they start to maybe drop off a little bit because they're maybe playing an awful lot more than they maybe would be used to playing, So I don't know maybe if that's going to be that'll affect them down the stretch, towards the kind of the end of the season, and that would be concern me certainly. But as you say, they've got a squad and they've got the 20s and as well. They've got obviously developing players that are coming through the uni system, and you mentioned James Stokes. I've got a good story about James Stokes. He's like a Football Manager legend for me. I had the database, the pyramid database that Moza does, and played. Obviously went with Quinn Rangers, and one of my first signings was James Stokes to play in the left wing. And I think he scored about 30 goals in my first season. And I just was like, this guy is an absolute cheat code. But down in tier 6 and everything I've played ever since, I've always like, you need to get him. But I remember him well from that one of that seasons that he played left wing and just absolute scored for fun. So I always keep an eye out for his name in the goal scoring charts in the real world, because obviously FM's not real world. Well, Chris, you would tell us it probably is, because it's like
no, not at all. I will have to drop James Stokes' current ability due to what you just said there, though. I'm only kidding. But he's been playing. James is you were mentioning obviously on the left, but he does play on the right as well, and I think that's where he's been his sort of main core this season. So he's kind of versatile, as most of the Stirling Uni boys are. Just the way Chris is, he gets them to play in numerous positions, gives them a great opportunity to go when they leave the uni to say, I can play, numerous positions, and that could be helpful for them future in their in their future careers as footballers mostly. But no, it's good. I like hearing them stories. Obviously, it's one of the reasons I've been busy obviously with Football Manager. Can't talk a lot about it now because I've signed an NDA on Friday, so yeah, I can't give any stuff away, or I'll be kicked off the team.
The secrets of FM. We'll look forward to FM coming out every year. We'll be keeping an eye on it for sure. Next game then, Edinburgh University 1, Open Goal Broomhill 4. I was going to say a result we probably expected. Did we? I probably wouldn't expect Open Goal to win by 4 or by 3, but I expected Open Goal to get the result for sure. Edinburgh Uni and our team that's probably toiling and just kind of sitting there towards the bottom. They could be anything in terms of where they'll end up. They could be at the bottom, they could be mid-table, but just one of these other teams that just kind of sits there and does the same every season. Doesn't really progress a lot, you find, from Edinburgh Uni. But what's your thoughts, Chris?
Broomhill, I've always been a weird one for me, because it always surprises me to see them. That it's maybe because I saw them early doors where they were kind of still adapting, but I always feel like they're doing as well as they should be, if that makes sense. Like, it's maybe I've got the thought that they're going to be running away with the league with the team they've got or whatever, but now they've done well recently. I tell you what, there's a few boys that have really changed my opinion on them. James Grant at right back, played for the Colts last season, got his move to Stirling Albion. I wouldn't say I didn't rate the boy, but he wasn't certainly a massive standout for me. He was in the team of the month, but he's doing great. For a young boy. When I kind of saw him sign for Broomhill. I thought he was maybe going to be a sort of backup player, but no, he's pretty much first team every week, doing astounding, well-deserved team of the month. And it's not just me, there's a few other people that have noticed that he's really coming on, which is good to see. And I like getting kind of proven wrong, especially with young players. Obviously, Aidan McLaughlin was also in the team of the month. He was a youth player, development at Broomhill, only sort of maybe 2 or 3 that stayed at the club. And he's pretty much first team every week, which is, like to give these boys credit because we know how good the likes of Brock Watson is, Gary Fraser, obviously Kirk Broadfoot. We know the quality these players are, but the younger boys are doing class. Obviously, I think Matty McDonald is. I'm feeling a wee bit happier about Broomhill. If they want to win the league, I think they could probably push now. Whereas before, I kind of was like, it's positive at the moment. Obviously, the attendances, the results, they just have to keep it going, basically. But as I said, it's good to see the sort of younger lads do well in a Broomhill side that's is actually really, really decent on paper.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we always like to see the guys that were there before us, that doing well, the likes of Regan O'Sullivan, Aidan McLaughlin, Ryan Tierney, Evan Malley, the guys that managed to stick around, because we probably knew at that point when Broomhill were coming in that squad was getting ripped up and going to be something completely different, and we didn't really know how that was going to play out. And certainly the guys that have stuck around are doing well. I mean, that's the thing about them. Those guys are great, and as you mentioned, the guys that have come in are guys that we knew of. I mean, certainly to a less extent, maybe some of the kind of guys that maybe played for the likes of Brock and things like that. I didn't really know those guys, but very, very talented players from what I've seen. And in terms of Broomhill, I mean, you've got to say that the performances. What was that? 7 wins in the last 8. I think the last one they drew 1 and won 7 out of the last 8. It was that. I think the last time they lost was against Stirling Uni. They won. I think Stirling Uni won 4-0. They got absolutely thrashed that day. They seem to have just totally bounced back and kicked on from that result. And yeah, I think they could challenge. Still, for me, Rangers B are the team to beat in this league this season. But there's no reason why Broomhill can't be up there. But obviously, we know the kind of whole thing that comes with Broomhill and the podcast and stuff like that, and that's obviously part and parcel of it. But I always worried that was going to take kind of centre stage and a lot of in terms of the football in the Lowland League, and it seems to not be the case. Sai's obviously got them playing. Sai Ferry's got them playing really well. You listen to him kind of on most of the episodes, and he obviously has a way of wanting to play football every week, and that's obviously starting to be ingrained in his players, and it's exactly what's happening for him. And doesn't have many players injured either. He's managed to kind of a settled enough squad now. I think he seems to have the same kind of starting 11 most weeks, and still got a few guys out like Kieran Gibbons and all that are still missing. But once you can get those kind of guys back, they'll bounce on even more. But yeah, in terms of their season, I think they'll do well, and certainly don't expect them to fall away. And it'll be an interesting run for sure. Next game then, Gallifrey Knowles 3, Celtic B 4. Gala having another kind of poor season, I guess. Celtic B, probably one of those teams, again, dropped into that fine bracket. I mean, that might be the podcast title this week, I'm not sure. But they're not going to, Celtic B aren't going to be a team that's going to win the league for me. They're not going to get relegated. They're doing what they've got to do in terms of the whole kind of playing the B team and try to get those guys games, and hopefully that works out well for them. But they're just a bit of a meh team for me. I don't really want to talk too much about them. There's not much to really say for me. But Gala, again, our team towards the bottom, probably looking over their shoulder ever so slightly, but a team that we assume will be safe towards the end.
Yeah, it's been a difficult run for Gala, obviously. The results haven't been great early doors. I think we kind of put them in a similar bracket to Broomhill in terms of the way they want to play. Jimmy Scott's obviously kind of similar in terms of Sai Ferry. He wants to get the ball out from the back and push like that. And they've actually been unlucky not at least to get a point there, because Adam Brooks for Celtic B, a really good, decent young player, actually. I really like Adam. I can't remember if he's been in any of the sort of team of the months, maybe last season, but he might have been in the team of the season, actually. There was a few. You forget, obviously, too many names recently, Ben, obviously, but he's went up and dug Celtic B the win there in the 89th minute. He's a name that comes up a fair bit. Adam Brooks, he's a fantastic footballer, but there's a lot of good footballers at Celtic B and Rangers B. I don't really have to say that, but I think the difference, we'll probably talk about it when we get to Rangers, but the difference, I think, in the B teams is, I think, probably the levels where players are. For example, we'll probably go straight into the Rangers B, Hearts B game after this, but Zach Lovelace is just phenomenal. And I don't think there's a lot of sort of B players at that level where he is, in terms of his what might be obviously the journey as a footballer. He could probably be playing League 2, League 1. I rate him that highly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we can move swiftly on to the Hearts B versus Rangers B. It was a 3-2 win for Rangers B. You mentioned Zach Lovelace there. Chris, absolutely 100% agree with that. I think he's probably the kind of guy, I actually thought he maybe would go out on loan. I think the loan deadline was a couple of days ago for the League 1, League 2 teams in the Championship. And kind of expect him to maybe move up, because he had started the season so well for the B team. But he's obviously stuck around. They maybe looking at it like, well, maybe want to keep him there because there is a chance to win that league and give those players the opportunity to go on and taste success in a very competitive league in terms of from what they were used to. Certainly, playing the Lowland League is a different kettle of fish for any player that's involved in kind of development football, if you like, within Scotland, playing against similar kind of youth development teams that will always be the same. And naturally, I think if your Rangers youth teams turn up on the day, they're going to be the best team in the park 9 times out of 10. And certainly, the way it's looking in the Lowland League, that seems to be the case, and they seem to be transferring quite well. And they've got, you mentioned it, they've got plenty of good players. And it's about getting that kind of team mentality to be able to maybe develop. But let's be realistic about the B teams. Let's not, Celtic and Rangers and even Hearts are not looking to bring in a full squad of players into the first team. They're only going to be looking for maybe 1 or 2 gems within that squad to actually maybe move into the first team at some point. Someone like Zach Lovelace, or maybe like Kane Richie Hostler, for example, look at Alex Lowry, the guy that's stepped up from the B teams into the first team in the past. Leon King, the boy Divine, I think there's a few looks at the Rangers first team as well. So they're only going to be looking for a couple of players to maybe step up and become squad players to begin with, and then eventually kick on and maybe can become kind of first team players. But they're not going to be putting a whole squad through the system. They'll end up going playing for teams like of League 1, League 2 teams that maybe forging a career that way, because they're maybe not going to make it as in the SPFL Prem. But yeah, Rangers B are going to be a team that are going to absolutely be running East Kilbride to the wire come the end of the season. It'll be between them two an open goal for me, for sure.
Yeah, and mentioned Kane Richie Hostler. I mean, he's just went out on loan to Dunfermline in League 1. So, I mean, these boys are skipping levels. They're that good. That's probably their natural where they should be playing. But, it's not just B teams. We know there's quality players in the West, the East, the Lowland League that we know that could be playing higher up as well. But, again, it was a last-minute sort of goal from Zach Lovelace to see off Hearts. Hearts, I think, in my opinion, there's probably about maybe 2 or 3 players that I think are really good potential-wise. But in all fairness to them, I think it shows with the results that they're not on the same level as Rangers and Celtic in terms of the actual overall quality. And it's no offence to Hearts, but yeah, I think people probably know that themselves. There's probably a lot more, finances at Rangers and Celtic than there is at Hearts, in fairness to them as well.
Yeah, I think obviously Hearts have seen the opportunity to come into the Lowland League, probably as an experiment to see where they're at, and will they be there next year? I personally don't think so. Probably go back to playing the reserve leagues maybe next season, and don't imagine they'll be around, because it probably wasn't the experience they maybe hope for. There are a team that's down towards the bottom. Obviously relegation doesn't affect them, so they won't be getting relegated, but they're going to be down towards that kind of bottom half or bottom quarter of the table for the rest of the season, as far as I'm concerned, because I haven't seen anything from them so far. Nobody's talking about them in any great detail to say they're a decent side either, so certainly don't expect much from Hearts. And Rangers B look like the absolute package as far as I'm concerned. They're a great side, great players, and I think, as I said earlier, they'll absolutely take a run in this league for sure. All right, last game we can just gloss over quite quickly. It's Gretna 2, Trinity Juniors 1. Good win for Gretna. Well done, and we'll move on to the West Scotland.
No, obviously, Jonathan's been waiting for this all week, hasn't he? I mean, 4 on the bounce. Michael McIndoe's obviously the new manager. I think we might have mentioned in the previous podcast, but it's all happened so fast, and that's the nature of football, isn't it? Like, you could 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, you can turn your whole season around if you start picking up results. They've obviously brought in the likes of Lewis Turner, Ali Adams, a very experienced goalkeeper. Who, I mentioned Kelby Mason before the game yesterday, who's obviously the Trinent keeper, because I think he's a fantastic young keeper. I think he came from Hearts Youth, if I remember correctly, but he looks like, in my opinion, one of the best keepers in the league. Shire fans listening in, if they are still listening, obviously we've not been really positive about them this week, but they'll say Ross Connolly, and I agree at that moment. But Kelby Mason, I think, is close to it. But Trinent, we know, they're going through a wee bit of a transition themselves with the new manager Colin Nish. I just think Michael McIndoe, it just seems right at Gretna. He knows his stuff, and it was literally 2 goals in 2 minutes. Beat Trinent on the day, Callum Helm and Liam Short, I think. A bit of a strange game. Trinent obviously said it was against a run of play. I don't know too much about that. Nicky Reid, who's came on loan, obviously from FC Edinburgh. I hate saying that all the time, but he's not been playing. He's kind of, I think, just adapting to the way Trinent. He's came off the bench, I think, and he's had an absolute peach. Obviously, everyone knows I rate Nicky. It looked like Trinent could get back into the game, but Gretna have seen it out. 4 wins in a row in the league. Probably about a month ago, we wouldn't have thought that, Ben. And they've had some banging results. To be in a team like Trinent, I think, is probably the cherry on top for me. And I think they'll be up there. They're living up to my expectations of them from where I thought they would be with the team that they have at the start of the season. Because I didn't think... I thought they'd probably still be a wee bit lower down, but probably more mid-table than what they had been in previous years. But obviously, I'm delighted for Jonathan. He's listened to this podcast, I think, the whole 4 years, and we've never been overly positive about Gretna, mainly down to results. So it's a bit of a purple patch at the moment for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously from the start of the season, we make predictions about teams, and I was obviously very, very critical about Gretna. But I'll be honest, I think from the form that they were in from the start of the season up until the beginning of September, those comments will be justified, because I think very, very poor start, and I, it's what I expected from Gretna. I wasn't surprised. Am I surprised I went 4 in a bounce? Absolutely. But the change of manager obviously will make a difference, and as that starts to build and get on, then hopefully they can kick on, because it's great to see them. I didn't want Gretna to be bad. It's not like I was saying that because I want them to be poor, or I want them to get relegated. It's simply not the case. And it was a case of I didn't expect them, from what I seen last season, to do well in the league, given where the league was at. And yeah, they've obviously played against teams, Edinburgh Uni, Dalbeattie, Gala, who are having poor seasons themselves. So probably a good run of games to give yourself that bit of confidence to go and take on a team like Trent, who would be a harder match in theory. For me, it didn't see much of Trinent last couple of weeks back to say that good a side personally. You mentioned the transition there. Obviously, the new manager coming is going to have to take a bit of time to adjust and get on with things. But again, Trinent, another team that will be in the middle of the pack and do all right, not going to get relegated, and certainly not going to do anything exciting for me over the course of the season. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, I'll eat my words at the moment for Gretna and acknowledge how well they're doing at the moment.
Just to comment on something before the game, obviously I mentioned Kelby Mason. I tweeted something about him being a really good keeper. The Gretna keeper, Ali Adams, liked it. He retweeted it this morning, kind of like, oh, well, we've probably, we've got a few past or a couple past the best keeper in the league or whatever. I think that's what it was. I don't know if Ali knows Kelby, but it seemed like, all right, okay, you think he's the best keeper? We've just, that to me, it was a wee bit of a competitive thing of maybe a lot of fire under Ali there, I think. I don't know.
These Gretna folks seem to like to keep the receipts, don't they? Like to make sure that you don't forget. I was joking with them the other night that probably the new manager had this podcast playing in the background in there.
I saw that
in the dressing room. I mean, the shots were fired to say that I'm not famous enough, but I mean, maybe they did. Who knows? What happens in the dressing room stays in the dressing room. And if somebody's saying negative things about you week in, week out, then maybe it's the kind of feel you need to go and say, well, we need to shut these people up and get on with things, because let's face it, there's probably not many people talking about Gretna. In general, there's not many people that talk about the Lowland League than ourselves, so there's not a barrage of podcasts or journalists out there making a lot of comment about teams like Gretna. So maybe they were, who knows? But I mean, any team's absolutely welcome to do that if you want.
We said it earlier, Ben. Like certainly I did. I mean, I love getting proved wrong. It's not about being right or wrong for me or you, Ben. It's like if people, I don't, I don't know if that happens. I have had a few occasions where people are like, "Oh, you've said this, blah blah blah." We've went out and done this, but yeah, if people want to use us as motivation, good for them. I'm happy for that.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. It's the place to do it, because we definitely have our opinions, whether it's good or bad. And yeah, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough in it. It's the same.
Think you're smart.
Think you're smart, right?
Did you see that?
Moving on then to the East of Scotland Premier Division, there was a full card of fixtures and a few games we'll talk about probably quite briefly, but Crossgates were in 4-1 against Lothian Thistle Hutchinson Vale, Chris.
Again, probably not a surprise. I keep saying they had a really good season last season. Lothian, I think, are struggling. They've lost a few players defensively. I don't think they've got the numbers. Lothian, I think they're going to struggle this season. They still have a decent core of players. I think they're just missing a few defensive pieces in that team. They had a couple of experienced heads either retire or kind of take a break from football. So they're struggling for me defensively, and that's probably why we're seeing sort of heavy losses. They have the backup of the younger players, but it's tough to sort of throw younger guys into this level and expect them to be off a standard right away, unless they're obviously gems, But yeah, not surprising. Crossgates, decent team. Lothian, again, I think struggling at the moment.
Next game, Linlithgow Rose 5, Dundonald Bluebell 1. A convincing win for Rose, the other team that I think we tipped at the start of the season to do well, and I think they will. Probably expected a bit closer though, Chris.
Yeah, Dundonald, I don't want to say they're struggling. I think I commented on them on the last podcast where can we still use words like transition when we're now in October? I mean, you would think 10 games in, or I really don't know how to judge Dundonald at the moment. I think it's tough. Obviously, we've mentioned guys coming into management for the first time. I know Stephen Husband from Kelty, really good guy. I think he will be a decent manager, but yeah, it's not great at the moment for the team that they have. But they're coming up against Linlithgow Rose side that I've basically said they're my favourites over anyone I think it was that clear for me where I generally look at that team and think it's the best team in the East of Scotland. They should be running away with the league. Results like that kind of just sort of prove the point to me.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think they're the team that we expect to be in that playoff at the end of the season, but a team that will probably run them close is Pennycook. They drew 3 each with Jeanfield Swift dropping points, and in terms of that kind of, I guess, title race, if you like.
Yeah, Jeanfield are another one that, if you look at East of Scotland, I think there's probably about 3 teams there. Linlithgow, again, are probably head above the likes of Pennycook and Jeanfield, but they would probably be my top 3, with all due respect to the likes of Broxburn, Dundonald and other teams. But yeah, Jeanfield are always up there. Pennycook are always up there. They were missing Andy Forbes. I made a bit of a comment before when I saw the lineup. I was like, "Where's Andy Forbes?" I don't know if he was suspended or what the case was, but he's certainly been one of their key guys, getting in amongst the goals. So they've missed him. I don't know I'm not sure how that's worked out. Obviously, being a centre back, how he's running up the field and scoring worldies and all that sort of stuff. But I'm sure they missed him yesterday against Jeanfield. But Jeanfield spoke to Scott Cummins recently, actually, who's a goalkeeping coach / sort of secretary, and a million things Scott does just to sort of check in with their squad and whatnot. But Jeanfield, again, it's a build of local lads, all mainly from Perth. It's a well-run club, and that sort of close-knit sort of community club, you always expect them to do well, regardless of quality. But Jeanfield have the quality to back it up as well, and that's why you always see them kind of high up the table and challenging as well.
Okay, moving on then to the West of Scotland Premier Division. We'll start with, let's go for Darvel 5, Troon 0. Darvel being Darvel, I guess, in that respect, and absolutely scoring for fun just now. It doesn't matter what game they're playing in, they'll just absolutely firing, raining goals. Doesn't matter who's playing, goals every week.
Every time we mention Darvel, like, I swear to God, the impressions on Twitter go through the roof, and that's why we talk about them. It's like, oh, we'll get a wee mention of Darvel there, right? But no, obviously when they signed Jamie Glasgow, I kind of put out a tweet basically, oh man, the depth of that squad is ridiculous. I'm almost at the point where kind of sick of talking about it, really, because everyone knows it's good. We're just sort of pointing out the obvious, They made another signing as well recently. So I think their squad's up to 2021, and it's players that could be playing first team. I would say the majority of the West of Scotland Prem teams. Ridiculous. It's always good to see, obviously, Thomas Riley do well, a guy I know from Kelty. But it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, that team. And it's not surprise. It wouldn't surprise me if they went out and won by these margins, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, they're absolutely great side. The depth is absolutely ridiculous in terms of what squad they have. And starting to look at the games that they've got kind of coming up, and you say what they'll probably do is do that every week. And I don't expect them not to score goals, and they're keeping clean sheets as well at the back. They've got that depth. They've got guys like David Simon coming back from injury as well at some point soon, which will only just strengthen that back line. And yeah, I mean, a great side. But I'm wondering, Chris, will you be applying for the 25 grand a year general manager's job at Darvel?
I wish I did. It's funny, I did have a look at it, like just the Twitter post. I'm kind of retired from the sort of media end of it, really, apart from the catch-up. And that would be great to get involved, but I think I'd probably have to organise travel a wee bit better to be involved in football again, because it was easy at Kelty, it was easy at Spartans. Obviously, Spartans was just a train or a bus ride away, but I'd love to be involved, to be honest. But I'd probably want to do it more on the scouting and analysis side than media stuff now. And general manager, I've seen general managers do the job at clubs. I think that would be too much stress for myself. Like out with football, I think commercial and all this sort of stuff. It's not my expertise. I probably could do it. I'm confident in myself that I probably could do a decent job. But there's parts of that sort of side that I probably wouldn't be interested in. I'd probably be more interested in the football side, as why we have a football podcast. And not commercial and marketing podcast and all that sort of stuff.
25 grand a year job for a full.
It's not bad, is it? It's pretty decent.
Full-time post at a Tier 6 football club in the west of Scotland. Tell me you haven't got loads of money without telling me you've got loads of money, right? That's all I've got to say no matter. But fair play to Darrell, you can do it.
And fair play to GMs, because that is a tough gig. Like,
absolutely. But the rest of us in this world just do it for free and do it for the love of the game. But somebody down there is going to get 25 bags to do that for a job. So fair play to Darrell, man. They can do what they want. I'm not jealous in the slightest. Next game then, probably it's quite a good result for Atherley. It's a 1-0 win away to Hurlford United. Atherley, a team we probably expected to be at the bottom, and I think probably still will be there or thereabouts, but being able to get results like that off teams like Hurlford, and especially the way Hurlford started the season, they've done quite well. And Atherley picking up 3 points away from home is absolutely great for them, and will potentially just keep them out of that relegation towards the end of the season, because it's going to be fine margins, I think, for the 3 spots for the relegation within the Premier Division, and that's the kind of result there that come the end of the season might just be all the difference.
Yeah, shout out to the person that does the social media for Atherley, because he gave me all the player stats from last season, so they will be filled in, similar to teams that did do that. Not a dig, I'm just saying. If I don't have the information, I can't input it, obviously. But yeah, that's a fantastic result for Atherley, considering the 3 teams that got promoted into the Prem. We probably looked at them and thought all 3 might potentially be going straight back down. That's how good the Prem is. But to be honest, I wouldn't say I've got a soft spot for Atherley. Obviously, my soft spot's for Largs, who I assume we'll be talking about soon. But they seem like a really good, well-run club, and there's a lot of information available, which I also like from a sort of outside point of view. Know about the players, know about the stats and how well they're doing. These are the teams that need to be at the sort of top levels, in my opinion, because there's plenty of teams that are stuck in, tier 6, 7, 8, and they do a fantastic job on all fronts. And you're thinking that I want them higher up the leagues. I want them because, it's all there for you, basically. So
I'm very surprised at them getting that result, given the start that Hurlford have had in the season, and Hurlford sitting in the top 4. And the one thing that stands out to me right now in the Prem is that the top spots in the Premier League are going to be hard to get into this year. I think the way the teams have started, there's probably anybody from about top to probably maybe 8th or 9th that could actually win the league, and then you've got Auchinleck are sitting kind of mid-table with games in hand who could rocket right up the league as well. We know what Auchinleck are like, but it's going to be tough for the teams at the top, and certainly teams at the bottom are also going to be struggling. I think that for me, there's probably about 5 teams there that I think that genuinely could get relegated. At the moment, I think the 3 teams we mentioned from promotion teams, plus I think Meadow, depending on what they do, and obviously they brought in a new manager now, and from what I've seen yesterday, Largs will also come on to that, but don't see an awful lot from Largs to say that they're going to not be in that relegation fight, certainly. All right, moving on then to the next game we'll cover in the West Scotland Premier League. Kirkintilloch Rob Roy 1, Cumnock 2. Sounds like it was quite a close affair at Cumbernauld Guys Meadow. Rob Roy, a team that have started brilliantly as far as I'm concerned. We've only lost 2 in the last 6, and a team that you absolutely wouldn't have expected to be anywhere near the top 5, 6 in the division this season, given how strong the division is at the top end. But they're going well, doing the job, and certainly I've talked about coming up plenty in this podcast to say they're a good side, and obviously grounded out the win, and it was I think, a close game by all accounts, and managed to get the result and stick, almost going to keep pace with Darvel at the top of the league, given their current performances.
It was a good result. Again, we've talked a fair bit about Cumnock, as you've mentioned. Are they still on the list, Ben? One thing I never actually asked at East of Scotland, when we were going through it, obviously, Socky, have they made the list from their comments on Twitter?
MD calling you on Twitter at the moment is absolutely getting on the list. So, Socky on the list for just now, for sure. Cumnock.
That's why you never got a mention earlier, I think, we're usually...
Cumnock, Cumnock. Only the Cumnock social media guy, though, is on the list. I don't think there's anybody else in Cumnock. I actually like Cumnock as a team, but...
the social media boy was actually really great with me, so so it's half and half. We'll write his first name down.
I will never not get upset with people calling the Scottish Cup the big Scottish Cup or the senior Scottish Cup. So I will always call that till I'm finished in football. So that will always be part of me. So I said plenty about Cumnock in the past, as I said, and they're a good side. I knew when Brian McGinty came into that job that he would get them out of that relegation spots that they were in back in when we had the 7 teams getting relegated. And he absolutely done that. He's built on the squad. He's got the boy Jordan Moore, who's for me one of the best forwards in the league just now. He's a great player. We've mentioned guys like Jamie Barclay in goal, who I know quite well from my time at for his time at Cowan, rather. Guys like Jamie Wilson in the middle of the park, who are just absolute stalwarts within this level of football, and great to have on your side. But Kyle McCausland at the back, he's a great centre half. Again, any team would love to have in your side. And Cumnock are going to be up there, but like I said earlier on, it's going to be absolutely tough, and who knows what will happen within this league this season. There's plenty of teams that are going to be in amongst it. Certainly in the first half of the year. We've only played like 6 games because of the cup games and all that. And I don't think many teams play another cup game before another league game maybe until probably next Saturday. Then the following few weeks of cup games, and then it's a league game. It's a few cup games, and it's a league game, and it seems to be quite chop and change in terms of the actual league matches. So it might help some teams in terms of rhythm and things like that. That if you maybe drop your games in the cup, then you might end up doing all right in the league, and that'll help your league form. But fair play, as I said, Cumnock they've done well. Another game that we'll cover off is Pollok 1, Auchinleck Talbot 1. Now both teams are great sides. We've said this all along. Pollok will be delighted to get that result because a draw is probably a good result against Auchinleck. Let's be honest. Like, Auchinleck are a great side in this league. Let's make no bones about it. And they can always be by far one of the best teams on their day. But I think the thing we're seeing from Auchinleck for me now is that I'm not going to say the end of Auchinleck, but like they're on that decline as far as I'm concerned. I think they're on the not the way down. They're not going to get relegated, for example. They're going to be good enough to do well. They're going to have cup runs this season, absolutely no doubt about that. But I'm just wondering if that squad that they've got is getting a bit stale, and perhaps they're going to struggle a little bit more. The teams that maybe were below them in the previous seasons have improved immensely, I think, across the board. If you look at the likes of Pollok, Hurlford, Beeve, ourselves at Cowan and Rangers, we've all improved our sides in the last in the close season, and I haven't seen that from Auchinleck. You mentioned Jamie Glasgow moving to Darvel. That's a massive loss as far as I'm concerned from a team. And I know Jamie put in a transfer request to move, and I don't know the ins and outs exactly of what happened there, but I don't know if it's to do with game time or what. But certainly losing a guy like him at Auchinleck, I would assume will strengthen. I think they got probably a decent fee. Rumours suggest maybe a decent fee was paid for Jamie Glasgow, so they'll want to strengthen, no doubt about it. But where do they go to strengthen their side? I don't imagine there'll be many teams that are in that league that want to sell any of their best players, for example, to go to Auchinleck. So I don't know what Auchinleck do to get guys in.
It's a weird thing. We've talked a wee bit about, obviously, the plans with Tommy Sloan, a legendary manager. Whatever happens at the end of this season or whatever, at this level, he's probably won more trophies than anyone, I think, in the modern sort of. I can't think of any other manager that's won as many trophies as him at this sort of level. Sort of comparing it with maybe like a Alex Ferguson leaving Man United sort of thing. Man United are not they don't have the draw certainly that they did. Would that happen if Tommy left Auchinleck? Obviously, if you're top of the league and winning games and the mentality is good, players want to come to your club. They want to be successful. They want to win trophies. Auchinleck maybe starting to fade, as you say, they're mid-table. It's maybe a question of like what players. I'm not saying for a minute, obviously, players would not want to come to Auchinleck anyway, but certainly it's a lot easier to swallow if they are going for a league title, are going for a junior cup or whatever it will be. But Auchinleck are a really hard one for me to judge at the moment. I would love to see sort of Tommy stay on for another few years, still being successful, but we all get older, and he's been at Auchinleck, what as a manager, I think more than 20 years or something like that. Yeah, crazy. So maybe it is time to sort of move on. And obviously, you mentioned Jamie Glasgow as well, the transfer. When you see a player like Jamie, who's obviously an Auchinleck icon in his own right as a player, wanting to leave that club, you do sort of start questioning it, like, well, maybe why is that sort of thing? If he's been there for so many years, I don't know. There's certain things kind of behind the scenes at Auchinleck that we don't know anything about, but it does seem like it's almost the last days of Roman or whatever you would. I don't know. Probably a better phrase for that, but you know what I mean. It does seem like they're going to be not the same Auchinleck, but one thing that always goes for them, in my opinion, and we've had it for 2 decades. You cannot count them out, and we're not at the point where we're counting them out in terms of anything really, because they have that winner's mentality. They somehow, when you don't expect them to, they see it through. And I'm certainly not dumb enough to count out someone like Tommy Sloan at the moment as well. So interesting. I think it's going to be an interesting one for them.
Yeah, I think from my perspective is that they've obviously not maybe strengthened the squad. I mentioned that earlier. They haven't strengthened the squad as well as other teams have, and the other teams are maybe just closing the gap now. Talking like you've obviously got Darvel, who have managed to do that last season by winning the league for the first time off of Auchinleck, and when you talk about would players want to go, if your choice, for example, is to go to Darvel or go to Pollok, say you're a Glasgow-based player, and if you want to go to play in Tier 6 of Scottish football, then do you want to drive the 45 minutes an hour journey, whatever it is, to Auchinleck 3 times a week? Maybe not. I mean, you've got the option there to maybe go to Pollok. Certainly if you're a Glasgow player, you're going to train in Glasgow. Your home games are in Glasgow. It's going to be fairly straightforward for you. If you're in Ayrshire, then you can go to a Kilwinning Rangers or an Irvine Meadow or something like that, and probably be equally challenged, and but maybe not obviously win as many trophies as you would at Auchinleck. But in terms of wages and things like that, and how players are looked after, it is potentially going to be quite similar. So is the draw previously been, like you say, the chance to win the trophies and go on winning runs and playing in a good squad? Maybe you're seeing that coming from our teams, that they maybe just decide that can go, or you can maybe go and play for a tier 5 team. I mean, you can go, maybe if you're good enough, you go and play for an East Kilbride or a Broomhill or Caledonian Braves, whoever it is, to and play at a higher level. Because players always want to probably test themselves at is as high a level as possible. And as much as we can talk about the pyramid, and we maybe think that the Lowland League's maybe not as a true reflection of the Scottish pyramid as we think it is, but certainly if you're a player, you might go like that. Well, I can go and play at one of those teams and save myself the hassle of travelling down. And it's probably the same for Cumnock, because they're in a similar kind of place in Glenafton in terms of where all those teams are is that it'll be a wee bit harder to attract the players, but certainly it'll be interesting to see what happens with Auchinleck. I don't have any doubt, so they will strengthen their squad over the next kind of couple of weeks with guys maybe coming in, I don't know, maybe on loan, or maybe picking up some guys from the kind of bottom ends of the league, for example. Maybe they'll try to find the next Craig McCracken or the next Jamie Glasgow, rather than trying to bring in somebody ready-made, talented and good to go. Maybe that's the way that the Auchinleck will go, and they'll develop these guys into good players. But it'll be interesting certainly to see how it develops. But I absolutely don't count Auchinleck out, that's for sure. Next one then we'll go on to is Petershill 1, Clydebank 4. 2 wins and a bounce for Clydebank. It looks like they've turned a corner, certainly from what we're seeing, because they were certainly toiling as far as I was concerned, and it's almost kind of horrible to watch. I've got a lot of time for Clydebank. I've mentioned this many times before. While that's and the people that run the club are Gordon Moffat, the manager. I've got a lot of time for those people, and it was kind of hard to watch that kind of happen. It must have been pretty brutal for those involved. But 2 wins and a bounce. That looks like they've turned a corner, and certainly be looking forward to playing them in a few weeks.
Yeah, I would probably expect even an out of form Clydebank to beat Petershill. To be honest, their team's still good. They obviously brought a goalkeeper in from Clyde on loan. One thing I would probably say though, did you see the graphic they put out? It was Moff, and he was obviously all dolled up or something. He had. I looked at it and thought that's fantastic. You don't usually see the graphic with a manager, dressed up in that like that. It's usually a player or whatever, but I thought that was a wee bit different.
Yeah, shout out to David Brockett, good pal of mine, who's the media officer up at Clydebank. He's done some good work in terms of the gifts and team lines and things like that. And yeah, I think that photo was taken on the Scottish Cup maybe weekend.
Oh, right.
And he suited up for Scottish Cup, and it looks like it's been it's been the graphic they've used certainly for the last few weeks. But
it's the first time I've noticed it.
I'll not mention the story as to why it's only from the waist up, but that's not for me to discuss. But there's a story there certainly about the reason why it's from about waist up rather than the full shot. But yeah, it's Clydebank in terms of media for me.
Fantastic.
I'm sure I've talked about it before, but they're the standard bearers and what they do in terms of Facebook and Twitter content for me each week, and it's one I always look to and try and do as good a job as in my own job as a media manager at Kilwinning. So yeah, I mean, absolutely fair play to Clydebank. They're doing a stellar job, and they've got a great wee setup at the ground as well at Home Park. And as I say, a lot of time for those people. So yeah, great result. And Petershill, one of these teams that maybe kind of a bit stop-start as well. They're one of these teams that are kind of struggling, and then they get a wee draw, and then they're not a loss again. They thought maybe the draw would have been something they could build on from last week against Mervyn Meadow, but now they're back to getting defeats, and probably a team like we talk about Dalbeattie are probably going to get relegated this season. Don't see much way back from them personally. Next game then, just to quickly mention, Beath 1, Athletic 1, a draw for both sides. I mean, yeah, probably expected Beath the way they've started to win the game, but kind of account out Glenafton the way they're playing. Not really too sure how they play. They're a bit kind of another one of these teams that kind of a bit of a stop-start type team, and lack the consistency at the moment certainly. And B, they'll be probably disappointed to drop the points there, but they're doing well given kind of where they're at in terms of new manager coming in and things. So yeah, fair play to those teams.
Just to comment, obviously, I've been kind of looking at Josh Fowler at Beath, and I don't think he always starts, but I do rate him as I was watching a few highlights and that of him recently, and I rate the boy. So I do like Beath, actually, I must admit. Glenafton, again, another team that's not doing too badly as well. There's so many good teams in the west of Scotland, but then you've got again, I think it's a case of like the East of Scotland where it's like Linlithgow, then the other teams, and it's maybe getting the case in the West where it's Darvel and then the other teams. With all due respect to the so many quality sides in the West.
It's a very, very strong league, as I said earlier. Those teams from probably about 11th up to the first that are going to be within a chance of winning that league this season, and it'll just depend on consistency and form, I think, over the course, and that squad depth is going to be massive for everyone in terms of the teams that they'll be able to stick with it in terms of that depth. So that'll be, I'm sure, important for everyone. Final game then in the West Scotland Premier League was the game, of course, I was at. It was Laxis 0, Colwyn and Rangers 2. One of those games for us in terms of horrible windy day, wet conditions were minging. AstroTurf Park that was quite poor in condition wise as well. So wasn't going to ever going to be a classic in terms of one for the neutrals to come down and watch. It was a fairly quiet crowd, for example, and the weather obviously put paid to that as far as we're concerned. But from our perspective, Buffs done what we had to do, got a job done, kept another clean sheet, got another goal from Big Dylan Mack, and the guy's absolutely on fire. Came in for a bit of, I'd say, criticism at the start of the season because he kind of came in with that pedigree and coming from the leagues above, and he was an early sighting of David Gormley's, for example, and maybe didn't quite come out firing within the first few games of the season, and kind of was a bit of kind of dissenting voices, whether that was from the stands or whatever else. And I always knew that Dylan was going to do well, and the people I'd spoken to before from different leagues and said that you've got yourself a great player there, and knew exactly what we're getting. For me, I expected Dylan maybe. I wasn't sure if he'd be a goal scorer, but I knew that he was going to be a guy that would work well with a guy like Thomas Collins, because Thomas Collins for me is one of the best forwards we've got in the league. And we were unfortunate to lose Thomas to a broken wrist in training, kind of right early doors just before the Darvel game, and that probably affected us a little bit because we were kind of building our squad around Dylan and Thomas up front. And yesterday was the first time that those two got to play together since the injury, so done the job. We've strengthened at the back. We've had Jack McCallum come in from Broomhill, who looks like a great find in terms of the squad. He's tall. He's wins his headers. He's got absolute cannon of a throw in. I mean,
I was about to say,
throw in is ridiculous, man. Sets up the goal for our first, and shout out to referee Sean Murdoch, who was pedantic enough to tell him to take the Buffs to take the throw in back about 5 yards or something like that. So we take a short throw in. I think Kieran took a short throw in, and the ref stopped the game, said no, it's back here, 5 or 6 yards. So we decided to change our setup and go right, give it to Jack. Jack will launch it in the box. Jack's launched it in the box. Big Dylan's jumped up, headed the goal. So shout out to Sean for the sticking to the rule book there, certainly, because that helped. Is get the goal, but yeah, I think, as I say, we'll be fine this season. I think that'll be that must be the podcast title.
We'll be fine this season. We'll have a few options.
There'll be something, but in terms of Lags, they don't look a great side. If I'm being perfectly honest, Chris, I know you're a big fan of Lags, but losing the likes of Will Sewell, it's a massive loss for Lags for me, and he's hard to replace those goals fundamentally, and I don't see anything from them that says that they'll have that in the locker this year. Yeah,
I mean, it's a good result, obviously, and conditions change football. It doesn't really matter who you're playing, but yeah, good to have Thomas back. Obviously, I like Thomas. He's been on the podcast before. I think he was cooking or something. I can't remember what he was doing with his time during lockdown, but we were making, Thomas Collins cooking podcast or something.
There we go.
But
Thomas is. There's a content idea for me. I didn't know that Thomas could cook, so there may be a wee content piece for me to do there.
To be fair, it could have been a Dele Alli situation where he was, fucking baked beans in a microwave sort of thing. I don't know. I forgot. I never asked him. I don't think. But apparently he's into cooking. So, but he's Thomas a good player. Obviously, we know that. Jack McCalman, as you mentioned, monster throw. And Sean Murdoch, obviously, I tweeted at him yesterday saying hopefully, he doesn't get any grief from yourself. But it's weird though. He's probably only maybe a handful of players that have former players turned into refs.
Oh, is he right? I didn't know that. Yeah, okay.
Sure. He used to be from my, from what I know him from is obviously Dunfermline. He was a goalkeeper at Dunfermline, and then category 3 ref now. Seems to sort of ref mainly sort of non-league, but also kind of higher up. I don't think he's ever had I think the most he's maybe had is a champ game. I don't think he's ever been like the main man in a Premier League game or that. But we wish him well. Obviously, his ref career. I'm not often fond of referees for whatever reason, but there are a couple of good guys for refs. Obviously, just trying to do their job as well. So.
As long as he got his team lines in time, that's all that matters.
I heard about
that. Okay, moving on then. That covers off the West Scotland Prem. We'll just quickly cover off some of the games across the rest of the divisions, and one we'll cover off because I guess there's been a lot of talk of Kilbirnie recently, Chris. Kilbirnie drew 1-1 with St Cadoc's.
Good result.
Good result, yeah, absolutely. In terms of football, 100%. And from what we can gather is that the fans behaved themselves impeccably at the match. There's been a lot of I don't know if anyone has seen the news, but when Kilbirnie and Glasgow Persia played last week, it must have been in the cup, was it?
Yeah, it was
the Juniors Cup, was it?
Yep.
There was a kind of unsavoury scene, shall we say, outside the ground after the match where someone has been attacked. There's been a fight and someone's got attacked and been hospitalised, and Kilbirnie committee have come out and kind of with a statement that's essentially put the blame on their fans, certainly from what I read, and suggestions of things like they'll maybe have to shut shop and close the gates at Valefield if the trouble continues. What do you make of it all, Chris?
I think the statement from Kilbirnie was a bit mental. But it gets the point across that they are willing to just end the club because there has been a lot of trouble with Kilbirnie. I did hear mixed reports, obviously, of who might have started the fight. Every time, sort of Glasgow and Ayrshire, I don't have to tell you that, Ben, but Glasgow and Ayrshire teams, obviously, every time they sort of face each other, there is a wee bit of a bite, I would say. But, I mean, look, a guy's reportedly been hit by a hammer. I don't think it matters who started or any of that nonsense. I mean, it's just unacceptable that someone's went to the football and they've just got a knock in the head and potentially, away to the hospital. I've not heard on the boy's condition. I mean, initially, obviously, everyone's probably seen the WhatsApp messages getting fired about, very, very serious to begin with. Obviously, I heard that, he might have died at that point. I mean, that's just ridiculous, going to the football and that happening and potentially someone dying is just crazy to think about it. So it's certainly, I don't think it matters it doesn't matter what level it's at, but certainly it's crazy to think about it sort of, non-league level that's happening. It's completely unacceptable. I'm not putting all the blame on Kilbirnie, but we know they have a bit of or certainly don't want to paint all fans of Kilbirnie in this sort of light, but we do know they have a bit of a reputation for flares and trouble happening, and I think that's why the board came out with that statement and say, look, it has to end, or it's not a one-off incident involving their fans where it's just that I think it would have been too harsh if it was one-off, but because it's the incidents over the last years, obviously St Roch's and another Glasgow team, funny enough, but to me it's just a very unsavoury situation, and you've got to applaud the board, guys like Gordon Ronnie, who does so much for Kilbirnie. They're the boys I feel sorry for. I think that they're willing to go to the lengths of potentially shutting the football club down because of fans, kind of spoiling it for everyone else, really.
Yeah, I think you know me. I've spoken about Kilbirnie before in the past, and I'm not a massive fan of the club or their fan base. So I'm not going to come on here and just deliberately blast them because I don't like them. I think from my perspective, the statement that was put out suggested that they had been put up in front of the West Scotland Disciplinary Board 6 times within 14 months. Now, a lot of Kilbirnie fans that I mentioned, I retweeted the statement the other day on Twitter and made a comment about it being a very strong statement and fair play at the club, like you said, to actually make a statement. But the thing that I always get back from Kilbirnie fans is, there's 2 sides to the story. You should go and read this and you should go and read that. But firstly, I would like to point out that I can't find anything from Kilbirnie fans online that suggests another side. It's all, from what I can gather, in Facebook groups, kind of behind closed doors that I can't get access to. So I can't find out 2 sides to the story. And I'm absolutely with any Kilbirnie fan that represents perhaps the group of individuals that are involved in all this kind of bother. Certainly, if you want to come and give your side of the story, then I would happily take that from you, because I'm going to do my best to remain objective in the situation. But I can't get away from the fact that 6 times in the last 14 months that you've been put up in front of the disciplinary board, and it can't be your fault.
It goes back to my point, though. I mean, just like say it was the Glasgow Perthshire fans that started it, right? Doesn't matter, and I tell you why it doesn't matter, because some poor guy has been hit in the head with a hammer. It's like me and you falling out, Ben. You push me and I hit you with a hammer. I mean, what's that going to? But he started on me. I mean, it's not really much of a defence. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, as I say, we're not painting all the Ladeside fans in the same light. It's just I don't even want to say it's small because I don't really know, but it does seem like it is a minority in my opinion. But I don't know for a fact if it's who it is really in terms of their fan base.
I mean, it goes back to, I think, the situation that we mentioned, this in Rocks one, where there was glass balls thrown or something like that at the game, and someone got hit, and they got into trouble from that. And it seems to have stemmed from there, because I think the club banned those individuals to come into home games in a way to try and prevent that. But what I think tends to happen, from my experience, I've only been to Kilbirnie once since that happened, and certainly at the home game where we played them, they can stand up in the hill. There's a kind of hill that overlooks the ground, certainly, and you can watch the full match with no issues. They come with their flags and sing their songs, they bang their drums up there and don't pay to come in and watch the games. And they bring their smoke bombs and their flares and all that sort of stuff, and they go to away games. And I mean, they came to Buffs Park, wrecked the place in Buffs Park when they came on a Friday night with fireworks and smashed down some broker signs and things like that. So they absolutely do. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They come and do cause bother when they come to games, and they do. You don't see that from any other club. I've been involved in this level of football now for 3 seasons. Granted, some of it was COVID, but when you do have fans, I have never seen a bit of bother. Obviously, I've had a situation personally at Arvimedo, which was a one-off, and certainly from going to that ground multiple times and being in the same position, for example, with the cameras and stuff like that, I've not had any bother at all at Arvimedo, apart from some good-natured banter, which is absolutely fine and on the line as far as I'm concerned. But some of the stuff you hear about Kilbirnie when they go to games, I mean, I think they've had 3 games at the start of the season were behind closed doors because someone shot a linesman with a BB gun, by all accounts. So there's obviously an element in that group, a group of fans that either want to go and cause trouble or see themselves as some sort of rebel corps that wants to fight and wants to kind of be that kind of hooligan kind of mentality, which is just not acceptable at any level of football, quite frankly. Kilbirnie, obviously, the committee are at their wits' end with what they can do with these people and how they can resolve it. I personally don't really know how they resolve it. The statement mentioned there that they'll close the gates. Does that really happen? I'm not too sure. I'm not convinced that the club would actually go to the lengths of withdrawing from a league and folding because that would be unfair on a lot of the other fans. I mean, Kilbirnie got a decent crowd most weeks beyond these people, and I don't know if I need some sort of help from the police or support, maybe more security, that kind of stuff. I know that if it was me in my club, that's what I'd be doing, and would be making sure they've got kind of beefed up security to make sure that these people behave or get dealt with quickly and rationally before things escalate into bigger problems. But yeah, it's sad to see, and I hope the person that did get injured at the game against Glasgow Perthshire is okay, and we'll keep an eye on it. But as I said, if anyone is from that Kilbirnie kind of crowd that wants to give them a message across, and is obviously listening to this podcast, maybe word will travel that we're talking about today. So come and get in our DMs, and we can chat about it and find out what's really going on.
And just a kind of final note on that, because I did read recently. I mean, we're talking about extra stewards, policing, or whatever. Their main sponsor of Kilbirnie is now pulled out of the club due to this. So, I mean, you're costing your own club money and potential signings and whatever else from this behaviour, which is never good. And this is the sort of money that clubs need, especially at this level. I mean, we saw, I don't know, a slide, a wee sort of segue. Obviously, Falkirk are begging their fans for $500,000 or whatever. So, I mean,
yeah, that's an awkward one, isn't it? I know that from experience within Kilbirnie Rangers that we have a bus foundation element of fans that pay money in, and you're kind of in two minds just now where to go kind of, not with the begging bowl, like that's the wrong phrase, but kind of, I don't really want to push that onto fans just now because of the situation we're all in terms of kind of cost of living and energy crises and things like that. Football's a release and you want people to be able to enjoy it, but when it becomes to a point where you can't afford it because people are going out there to beg. We look at Cali Braves done a good thing recently where they said that if they can get them for free for the rest of the season, which is you've got to commend them for that, and allows the people to come and watch football on a Saturday for free. And yeah, it's a hard one for all clubs. It's not as good. Let's be honest, that this cost of living is going to affect everyone, whether it's from a sponsorship perspective. Your sponsors probably maybe can't afford to spend the same kind of money that they were doing before because they've got their own costs, increased costs, and then maybe the money they spent, the $2-3 grand, whatever it is, $4 grand on sponsorship is going to go elsewhere because they've got their energy bills tripled, their supplier costs have increased, things like that. So yeah, very, very hard for everyone, I think. Yeah, and hopefully people can still enjoy the football and the clubs come out of it fairly unscathed, I guess. Well, that's us then for another edition of the Official Catchup podcast. If you want to get in touch with me, it's at Mr. Ben Grant on Twitter. And Chris, how do you find us if you're looking for the Catchup?
Official Catchup on Twitter, Lowland League Catchup on Facebook, and pretty much everywhere else, either Official Catchup, Lowland League. Yeah, just everywhere. I keep saying it every week, but everywhere. But I think this is probably this might potentially be the longest episode we've ever done, Ben, just looking at the time in there. But yeah, so hopefully if you're to this point and you're at the end and you've listened to the whole thing, absolutely appreciate it. We kind of feature film level. This is what happens when we miss a week, isn't it, Ben?
That's a plenty to talk about. We've probably covered off half these topics last week, so we'll be back, I'm sure, next Sunday. My wife's away for the weekend next weekend, so I'll be here on my own. So I'll have plenty of time to podcast and prepare and all that good stuff that you've got to do in terms of podcasting. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you all next week. Cheers.